What's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. My name is Brandon and this is Bomb Gaming. And if you're here, you're probably looking for some tips and tricks on how to complete the seasonal trial events here in Forza Horizon 5. So today I'm hoping to give you guys some information that may be able to help you guys, or may be able to help you as a teammate at least, in completing the trial events and making them a little bit easier potentially on yourself, and hopefully not having to repeat them, because I know they are definitely much harder than they were in Horizon 4, and I definitely had to humble myself after jumping into the first few in Horizon 5, thinking that I was going to be able to jump into them like I did in Horizon 4. In Horizon 4, I never really had an issue with trial events. Horizon 5 is a different story for sure. So, wanted to make this video just to give you guys some tips and tricks. Maybe you're new to the Horizon, maybe you're new to even doing the festival playlist. But first, before we jump into those tips and tricks, I do want to go ahead and just go over a quick overview of what the trial event is here in Horizon 5. Alright, so as we load in to the trial, this is going to be our teammates. So the trial event is a team race, and that is something super crucial to remember. This is a team race, and you're going to hear me say that a few times in this video. But as we load up to the leaderboard here, this is the trial event leaderboard, or grid, if you want to call it that. But here it kind of gives us some information on what we need. So the blue team, as you can see on the screen, it's actually glitched right now and none of my teammates have names, but the blue team is other players, actual physical human being players. And the red team is the Drivatars. They will always be that color. Red is always going to be Drivatars and blue is always going to be other players. Make sure you make that notation right now. If you ever see a blue tag in front of you, that is a player car. Don't dive into them and don't do anything kind of sketchy to them. If there's a red team in front of you, go for it. But if there's ever blue anywhere in front of you, you should not be diving into any corners. All right, now that that soapbox is out of the way, on to, again, going over some of the trial event details. So you are racing against Unbeatable Drivatars, being that is the highest difficulty in the game. And just for the way that Unbeatable difficulty works in this game, the Drivatars will always start out in the front of the grid. So what that means is the human players, the blue team, will always start out at least in 7th. So you can see my name is right there in the front on the top of the, the blue team. That means I'm starting in 7th place, and then, as the other team goes, they're starting further in the back. So the human beings, the other players, the teammates, will always be 7th through 12th. The Drivatars will always start out 1st through 6th. And so how points work for the trial event is for every opponent that you're ahead of, you get 100 points for your team. That's for players and Drivatars alike. So right now, the Drivatars are technically ahead of every bit of our team. So what that means is, at the start of this race, the blue team is technically down 3,600 points, because that's a collective total. So it's 600 a player, or 600 points each Drivatar has currently, because it's the start of the race. It obviously changes as you go along, and you'll see that as the gameplay plays through. You'll see how that changes. Whatever racer is in first place in the race gets an additional 50 points for their team. So that prevents any kind of tie from happening in the points. And that is Drivatar or player, whichever one has the first position, gets that additional points. And the trial event is consisted of 3 races, but there's a chance that you may not do all 3. It is best of 3. So if you win the first 2, if your team wins the first 2 rather, you do not have to do a 3rd race. So that's a change from Horizon 4. It's a welcome change, because even in Horizon 4, if you won the first 2, you still had to race the 3rd one. And if you lost, it didn't matter. So it's nice to see that change. Alright, but now with the overview of the trial event out of the way, we'll go ahead and jump into some gameplay, and I'll show you guys or go through some of the tips that I have. And then at the end of the video, if I did miss anything, definitely let me know down below in the comments. Okay, and so the first tip, again, it's going to be one that I'm going to repeat probably a few times this entire video. You are on a team. Make sure you're racing as a team. It doesn't matter where you place. It matters where your team is in points. So make sure you're aware of that. Don't go into this race acting selfish. You are a team player right now. Team player. Second tip is you want to make sure that you've got a car with a tune on it. And not just a tune, but a well-rounded tune. You usually do not want to go into a drive or a trial event with a car that is not all-wheel drive. You're just going to have a much better advantage having an all-wheel drive car. And if you do need help finding tunes, every Thursday I do go through and make videos on the weekly festival playlist reset. And the trial event is usually the very first one I do. So keep an eye out for that video. Every Thursday is usually the first one that will come out. I try to have them out as soon as possible, but just be aware of that. So the third tip that I'm going to bring up is if you are new to the racing game, or even if you got experience, it's something that can help out a ton, is having a full racing line on. That just makes it to where you know exactly where you should be. It kind of helps you know where the Drivatars are going to be, because they follow the racing line pretty well. And that'll kind of lead us into another tip as we get down the line. Tip number 4 is going to be that your teammates are not supposed to be used as your brakes. If you've got a blue name tag ahead of you, you should not be diving into a corner. You should be trying to make that corner as clean as possible. Because once you dive into a teammate, there's a few things that are going to happen inevitably. It's either going to put that teammate out of the race, or it's going to make that teammate have to really try hard to get back to whatever position they were in. And it can ruin the entire race for your team. Not just your teammate or you, but your team. So that's super important. Do not dive into your teammates. Don't dive into corners if you've got blue names ahead of you. On that same note, so this is a 4.5. Tip 4.5. If you have a teammate behind you that is obviously moving at a better pace than you are, that is racing at a better pace, concede the position to them so they can continue going forward and not be held up by you and potentially cause a crash into you. If you don't know, that's just how team racing should work. If somebody's moving faster than you, try to get out of the driving line and give them that position. That does nothing but help your teammate. It really, like, pride just needs to leave the room when you're doing these trial events. It does not matter where you individually finish. Tip number 5 is going to be a funny one, I guess. There are going to be Drivatars that you cannot catch up to. For whatever reason, if a Drivatar gets out into first, sometimes they're just gone. It's not worth pushing your limits to try to catch up to them. You're not going to. So you're better off maintaining your position and hoping that your team can do their part. But that also leaves us into tip number 6. And that is slowing down AI. So you may not be able to catch up to the one out in front, but what you can do is you can slow down the AI behind you if you've got teammates that are behind them. And so basically what you just have to do is play defensively. You know, you slow down and you try to keep the AI behind you. You can dive into turns if you need to and do kind of that stuff to slow them down, but if you pull in front of an AI, it will slow them down. Sometimes they even slam their brakes on if you brake check them, and then you just kind of try to weave back and forth to slow them down so that your teammates can get back up and in front of you. So this is that non-prideful play that really is just essential for these team events. And I will have some footage up. It's not very easy to do in S1 class here, just because the Drivatars can kind of get by you, especially when they bunch up. One-on-one isn't too terrible, but when they, you have 2 or 3 behind you, it's kind of difficult. But you can practice this, just in driving in the normal races. If you try to just do it there, you can get some practice there. But you just want to make sure that you're, experienced enough to do that, to where you don't end up ruining the trial for yourself by trying to help out in that sense. So to kind of go along with that, if you do see a player slowing down the AI, don't ram that player. It may look like they're just not, trying, but that is like, they are literally trying to help out. And sometimes people see that and they're just like, oh, this guy is just messing around at this point. But they are trying to help you out. So if you do see somebody slowing down the AI or acting funny, like keeping the AI behind them, just go by them. That's what they need you to do. Just get around them and get up to where you're getting points. So definitely make sure you don't mess up the guy that is trying to help out. And the last tip here is, one that maybe isn't completely feasible, but you can do it, is you need to find some friends or other players to consistently do the trial events with. So by that, what I mean is you'll know, what people's weaknesses are if you play with them, enough. So you kind of know where you need to potentially keep or pick up the slack, or, where they can help you out. I would like to see a trial event where all 6 of the players get out in front and then just do like a 6x6, a side-by-side, and like across the entire road where they're blocking the Drivatars. I think that would be hilarious. But, they don't necessarily need to be friends. I do have a Discord server down below. It is in the description, where, you can find other people that are playing Horizon 5 if you want to look for other players to play with. It's a good place to find people for the trial event, for the playground games. If you just want to find others to play with, definitely go check that out. But I think, having a consistent team, it doesn't even need to be a full team. In the gameplay footage you're seeing here, we lost 2 people because they ended up leaving after the first race, one of the 2. And I prefer doing races with less people. Because it's less that you have to pick up with, but you don't necessarily need a full team. If you've got, 6 people, that's great. But if you've got 4 people, there's a potential that you may not even get paired with 2 other individual ones. But if you do, you can potentially pick up their slack because you've got 4, drivers that are doing good or that can do well. So I said that was the last tip. I have a bonus tip. It's not necessarily going to help you out. It's more so for your team. If you are losing a race, like this is the 3rd race, if you are losing this race, I would implore you that if you're in last place, I would just leave, because if you lose, you're going to have to do it again. If you leave, your team maybe will win because of the point difference. I know that's like a very quittish kind of thing to say, but when you're in the sense of like people having to do these trial events 7 or 8 times to get through and complete them, having a teammate that will actually drop out of the race just to help you guys win, or help them win, I mean, it makes your day a little bit better after you've done it 7 times. So that's my final tip. I hope you guys did enjoy the video or found it helpful. If you did, or if you have any other tips, let me know down below. I'm definitely curious to see if I missed anything or anything like that. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go ahead and get subscribed if you want to stay tuned for those weekly festival playlist videos. As I said, every Thursday I go through and make new videos on the new festival playlist. But we're starting with Series 5 as of Thursday and jumping into that Festival Rush takeover. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next video.